The Fresh Fiction Podcast is brought to you by REVELL Books and Bethany House, publishers of Justice Betrayed by Patricia Bradley. Today I'm joined by Patricia to talk about Justice Betrayed, cold case mysteries, and why Elvis Week in Memphis was the perfect place to set a murder. If you love what you hear, don't forget to subscribe to the Fresh Fiction Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play, or any of your other favorite podcast apps. You can also follow me on Twitter and on Instagram with following Real Vixen. Welcome back to the Fresh Fiction Podcast. I'm so excited to be joined right now by Patricia Bradley. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored to be on your program.
Oh, well, we're so excited, and I'm really thrilled to talk about your newest book, Justice Betrayed, which comes out in June, correct?
Right, next week, June 5th.
Next week. Oh my gosh, it's coming just around the corner.
I know. This year has flown. Can you believe it's June 5th? Almost June 5th.
I know. I was just saying that to some of my coworkers today. I was like, how has May just gone by so quickly?
How about how has the year gone by so quickly?
I know. It's insane. And is this always like a nervous time for you, right before, like the week before your books are out?
No, I've done all I can do, and the sales are not up to me; they're up to God. So that is something I've never worried about.
Oh, that's very good to hear.
There's no point.
Yeah.
I mean, I cannot make my sales go up. Probably could make them go down, but I can't. I can't. There's nothing. That's totally out of my hands.
Yeah. No, and that's the best way to be when you can't control anything. You can't be retroactive about it, for sure.
That's true.
So, Patricia, let's talk a little bit about how you first started writing.
Okay. I did not start writing until I was 35.
Wow.
And only did that. I was always a reader, and I read everything I could get my hands on. But I had been, when you turn 35, you tend to have trouble sleeping, or I did. And I would lay awake at night, and I'd stare at the ceiling and stare just into space. And one night, this man popped into my imagination. And I could see him. He was standing at a window, and through the window I could see smokestacks billowing. And he turned and he looked at me and he said, "This isn't the way my life was supposed to turn out." And so I began to entertain myself with his stories, or he began to entertain me with his stories.
Right.
And then different people would pop, different scenes, and I just decided one day to start writing them down, and it went from there. Back then there wasn't much internet, if any, and I didn't even have a computer. I started writing on a Royal manual typewriter.
Oh my goodness!
And so my very first thing I ever wrote was I sent to Woman's World, and they bought it, which just floored me. And
how did that feel to get your first thing that you wrote published?
Well, I was so green, I did not know it was that hard.
Right.
I didn't.
That's a good place to be.
It was like, oh, okay. But I actually sent the guideline said to send 2,500 words, so I sent 4,000.
No, sure, of course.
But the thing is, and that's I've always said it was a God thing. The editor liked it, and she cut it, bought it, and then cut it to what it needed to be. And I learned so much from her cutting. And then the next one I sent in, I just went over about 1,000 words, and they bought it, and I got to cut that one. And cutting 1,000 words, it had to be 1,500, so I had 2,500. Cutting 1,000 words out of a 2,500 word short story, I really learned what it meant to make every word count.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and that taught me a lot. And so, but I thought, oh, I'm on my way. I'll have a book published next year, 30-something years later,
So had you been, between the time that you first started and when you finally got it published, were you what were you doing in between that? Were you just like writing, learning the craft?
I was writing and learning the craft, but I live, as you said, I live in North Mississippi, and I wasn't aware of any writers, and that, then you didn't really. It was hard to find critique partners because the online things hadn't started yet, and so I kept making the same mistakes over and over. And then in the middle of writing, my husband passed away, and I thought, well, I'll take 2 years or a year and see what I can do, if I can get a book published, and that's what I'll do. That's just what I'll be. I'll be a writer. And about 2 months into that, God called me to something else, and it just blew my mind. And I worked in the abstinence program for 8 years until finally, after I did, I guess, everything that I was supposed to, because we wrote a curriculum and workbook, and then I was sitting I was doing my devotional, and all of a sudden this woman popped in my head and told me that someone was trying to kill her, and I said, yes. Kill people again. So, and then that's basically has been my writing career, and that's when I hooked up with Susan May Warren and went to her Deep Thinkers retreats and actually learned how to write. Yeah. Learned the different things that I was doing right and different things I was doing wrong.
That's so cool. And had it always been thrillers for you? Were you always wanting to do romantic suspense?
That's what I always read, and I have written some just sweet romances for Harlequin, but it's so much easier for me to kill them off than to get them together. So I write what I like to read most.
Okay.
And romantic suspense is what I like to read. That and thrillers. Are you able to do that while you're writing, or do you have to kind of be like, I'm writing now, so I can't read in my genre? No, I can read. No, I separate it that from somehow or another, because I have been reading Carol Putman's, and not Carol Putman, but Rachel Dillon's and Nancy Mills this last couple of weeks, and they're very good. They're different from mine, but I really have enjoyed them.
That's interesting. I really liked Rachel Dillon's book. I just talked to her last week, and it was very, very cool.
Yes, I was so proud that she finaled in Daphne, and there was another one. Yeah. So that was cool.
That is it's so great when you get to see your friends do well like that.
Right. Yes.
Well, let's jump right into the Memphis Cold Case series. Okay. So with that, this is the third book, right? Justice Betrayed is the third book. Right. Yes. Okay, that's what I thought. What kind of inspired this series for you?
I grew up in Memphis, and if the Logan Point series is set right outside of Memphis. Right. Well, I live in North Mississippi, but I live all the way in the northeast corner. So for the Logan Point series, I just simply moved Pickwick, which is what I live near, the Tennessee River, and I took it and moved over next to Memphis. And so easy. I asked my editor if I needed to write something in the beginning, maybe apologize to the people of northeast of the Pickwick area and everything. She said, no, it's fiction. So then that kind of led into, I love cold cases, so that led into the Memphis Cold Case series.
Yeah. What is it about cold cases that you love?
That I can kind of think about how I can solve it, even though you can't really, but in your mind you can think of you can figure out what might have happened. Yeah. I think that's what fascinates people about cold cases, is that in their minds, they try to figure it out. Yeah, for sure.
And without the closure of that, it's kind of this thing that hovers over everybody, especially the ones involved with it.
Right.
Yeah, that's so cool. So with Justice Betrayed, what I thought was so funny about this one is that there's a Elvis week. Is this a thing that actually exists in Memphis?
It is. It has been. I guess Elvis week, and it's always on the anniversary of the day he died in August. It's centered around August the 16th, and instead of his birthday. But then I can understand that, because his birthday's in January, and even in North Mississippi, or in Memphis, the weather can be dicey.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
And the only thing in August, all you know is you're going to have heat.
Yeah.
So, but you can deal with that.
Exactly. You can go inside, get some ice cream, it'll be fine.
Yeah, right. So, yes. And I knew that when I thought of the Memphis series that I had to have a book that paid tribute to Elvis.
Okay. I was going to ask, are you an Elvis fan?
I was. All my life I have been. Now I've never, I haven't never been to the Elvis week. It's too hot in August. But I did when I was like 16. I had my picture made in front of the house that he had bought for his parents. It was the first house he ever bought.
Wow.
And it was not far from where I live. So, and it had music notes on the gates. Of course, they had to put gates up to keep people from coming all the way to the front door.
Yeah. Knocking on the door for the people that live there. It's like, please leave us alone.
So it was fascinating.
Oh, I bet. And that's so interesting too that you just did your research at home and decided what, if there was a body to be found at Elvis Week, what it would be like.
Right. Yes. Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about Justice Betrayed. Tell our listeners a little bit about the book.
It is a story of Rachel Sloan. Her mother died. That her mother's death is one of the ones that happened 17 years ago, and she had never connected it to the Elvis impersonator. In fact, I don't think she even realized it until she began to investigate Vic Vegas's death. He is the aging Elvis impersonator who is at the beginning of the book. And I went to Facebook. I couldn't think of a last name for him, and I asked my readers if they would come up with a name. And when I saw Vic Vegas, I just knew that had to be it.
It's perfect. It makes so much sense when you think about it. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So, so she's never really dealt with her mother's murder, and always thought it was a robbery gone wrong, but it turned out to be something else.
So much deeper, as they always do.
Yes, and so and then she was in burglary and robbery, and but she always wanted to work in homicide, and so when she had an opportunity to go to homicide, she would be working under the guy that she had dated, and that's when she broke up with him, because she really wanted to work in homicide, and she wasn't going to let anything stop her.
That's great.
She was very focused.
Yes, I like a strong woman like that.
Yes.
Do you have fun writing the romance parts of it? Because you mentioned that you like the bodies more than the getting them together parts. But is that something that also brings you some joy of getting to bring these characters together? It
does. I like seeing where they're going to go in their relationship. And mine are more relationship oriented than they are, say, romance.
Sure, yeah.
And because to me, there has to be a relationship. There has to be a give and take, and it has to develop. And most of my stories happen within, at most, a week. And so if they just meet, you're not going to have him proposing. Because there's not enough time.
Yeah.
What I usually write is the promise of the happily ever after. But with Boone and Rachel, they had dated, and he was still very much in love with her, and was very hurt that she had broken up with him. But so I liked the dance between them.
Yeah.
Because and she, of course, when she moved into homicide, she thought he was micromanaging her, and but because of his issues, it really he didn't really treat her differently from everybody else, but she didn't see that.
Yeah. And I always enjoy a story with the second chance, sort of.
Yes, I like the second chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's so cool. So are you, we're about to start talking about what you're watching, what you're reading, and what you're listening to, which is one of our favorite segments on the podcast. I was going to mention, do you have an Elvis song that's one of your favorites?
Oh, probably the Red River Valley. Right now, my brain is gone.
It's holiday brain, I get it.
Yes. Deep in the Valley. I like that. I like all of his songs. That and I like his fast ones. I like the Jailhouse Rock. And if you ever watch, and I watched a lot of the videos, and when I was of the music videos of him when I was writing it. In fact, I played a lot of the YouTube soundtracks from the movies.
Yeah.
So, and that was so much fun.
Yeah, I would have gotten so sucked into rewatching all of them and being like, it's research.
Yes, it is, and I just play it on my computer while I'm writing. Usually, I can't write I write to music, but not with words.
Right.
But I was able to do that with this story.
Oh, that's so fascinating.
It is. There's very few times that I can, because I'll find myself writing the words that I'm hearing.
Yes. I feel the same way, or I'll start thinking about the story that the songs are talking about, and I'll get completely lost and then say, oh, I should have been writing. Instead, I'm now in a new world.
This is true.
So is there anything recent that you've been watching that that you'd like to share with listeners?
I binge watched not long ago Broadchurch, which is and it is a really, for a writer, it is a really good thing to watch to see how they develop the story. And that is one thing I watch. I've also watched some Forensic Files because on my blog I have every Tuesday I have a game for my readers to play, and that they have to I have 3 statements, and one of them is false, and they're either crimes or police blotter reports or things like that. So, and I have to come up with these questions. So I've been watching Forensic Files for that.
Oh, how funny.
So that's, a lot of my reading and watching is for research. Because I'm not much of a television or movie goer. I'm ADHD, and to think I have to sit still for that long.
It's very challenging, I'm sure.
It is, and writing has been the best thing for me for ADHD. It's been the best medicine they ever made.
Wow. That's because you have that one thing that you have to focus on, and you just have to get it done.
And it draws me in. It calms my mind.
Yeah, for sure. Do you ever hear from other authors or readers who also have ADHD and how that they struggle or find the same sort of catharsis with that too?
No, I haven't really done that, but I can imagine, because now all my life I have been able to lose myself in a book, and it. I mean, I think a bomb could go off next to me when I'm reading a book, and I never hear it. But I can understand how reading or writing or painting, and I also do pottery, and that really.
Oh, you're a very busy woman.
True, but that gives me something for my hands to wrap around.
Sure, for sure.
And I also knit, and that helps with ADHD.
Yeah, that's funny. I was a few years ago. PBS did they aired all the new Jane Austen movies. They remade them. It was maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and I decided that summer or fall, whenever it was, I was going to learn how to knit.
Okay.
And so I was knitting while watching these Jane Austen movies, and then quickly learned that that's only really good if you know, because I had the same thing. I needed to do stuff with my hands. It was only good if I knew how to knit already. I kept getting lost because I would get stuck knitting and not paying attention to the movies.
Well, and you can't count. You have to be knitting something you don't have to count.
Exactly.
Because if you have to count, I was actually knitting a baby blanket when I watched Broadchurch. I had to quit because I kept messing up.
Yeah, exactly. I was making coasters. I was about as big as I could get, and that was the extent of my knitting.
I love the knit, though.
It's really soothing. I wish I could pick it up again.
Is. Yeah, maybe you will.
Maybe one day.
I learned when I was 17.
Oh wow!
And off and on through years, I would drop it, and then maybe go 10 years before I picked it up again.
Oh, that's so cool, and it just kind of came back to you.
Mm-hmm. It did.
That's awesome. Well, Patricia, our time is almost up. I've monopolized your time enough for this afternoon. But I am curious, for our listeners, how can readers stay in touch with you and find out more information about you?
They can find me on Facebook at Patricia Bradley Author, and on my website, ptbradley.com, or my blog, which is ptbradley.com/blog.
Easy.
Yeah, but mostly my favorite place to connect. I connect a lot on Facebook, and I'll usually have questions. Right now, we're talking about on Facebook about Brussels sprouts.
Oh, yeah, one of my favorites.
Well, that's what I put up there because I don't like them.
Oh, we have a battle going.
Yeah, everyone has been telling me how to cook them. Well, I've tried cooking them, and they're still bitter.
Too bitter for you. Mm-hmm.
True. And I just wonder if it's some people's taste.
I think so. My fiance can't eat anything that's like the, I don't know what that, not coniferous, but whatever that type of vegetable is, like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, asparagus. It's too bitter for him. He won't eat it.
Well, see, I love the broccoli, and I love the cabbage.
Me too.
Which is only a cousin to Brussels sprouts, and I just really don't understand. I about decided I don't know how to cook them yet.
Yeah. It's possible. I like them a lot, but I think that you have to boil them to get that bitterness out. But yeah, like boil them in salt and pepper, and then that helps a little bit of cutting that the bitterness out if you just blanch them. That's my tip for you.
Okay, because I have been grilling them.
Ah, yes, and that can help. That can help bring out even more of the bitter because you've got the fiery flavor in there too.
Right. Yeah, and you're not diluting it.
Yeah, exactly.
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, boil them with salt and pepper. You'll be good to go.
I'll try that.
Awesome. Well, Patricia, thank you so much. This was a lovely chat, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
I'd like to extend my thanks again to Patricia Bradley for joining me today. You can find Justice Betrayed anywhere books are sold. You can also stop by freshfiction.com to read a review. Thank you also to REVELL Books and Bethany House for their continued support of the podcast. Make sure you stop by freshfiction.com to find out more about Patricia and other REVELL and Bethany House authors. We're still growing, so please help us out by subscribing and rating the podcast, leaving a comment, or even just sharing it on social media. You can find us on Twitter at Fresh Fiction, Instagram as Fresh Fiction, and on Facebook. Until next time, happy reading.